NFL teams are about to enter the most important part of their offseason schedule as they try to build their rosters. Now, there are some new things happening this year that will help you, the fans, understand what these teams, including the Giants, are trying to do. We'll talk about it next on the Big Blue Breakdown Live. Hi again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Big Blue Breakdown Live here on the New York Giants on SI YouTube channel and media network. I'm Paul Dottino. So glad you could be with us tonight. And obviously, folks, it is another chilly evening here in the Northeast. The deep freeze is really kind of cripping everybody's style. But hey, don't worry about it. We're going to talk NFL draft here tonight. Hopefully, you guys are going to have a real good time. We got a very, very special guest coming up in just a couple of minutes that's going to help you in your draft preparation as you try to figure out the kinds of players and some of the names that maybe the Giants are going to be looking at when the draft comes around in late April. Now, first things first, I'm Paul Dottino, and I got to tell you, last week, I had a chance to talk to somebody who's doing something very innovative regarding the draft. We all know about the Senior Bowl, and we all know about the Shrine Bowl. It used to be called the Shrine Game years ago. The Blue-Gray Game is no longer around. The Hula Bowl was already played. I think it was back on January 11th this year. But this is a big deal coming up in the next week, specifically for the Giants. Now, this team, the Giants, is going to have a combined 5 coaches at college football's 2 premier all-star games. The NFL Network is going to televise both the Senior Bowl and the East-West Shrine Bowl coming up in the next week and a half. The Senior Bowl, which is the granddaddy of them all, is going to be Saturday, February 1st in Mobile, Alabama. Giants offensive coordinator Mike Kafka will serve as the head coach of the national team. Running backs coach Joel Thomas will be the offensive coordinator for the American team. And the American team is going to have Giants assistant defensive backs coach Mike Adams handling the secondary. Now, again, NFL Network, NFL Plus, and ESPN, those 3 channels are going to have daily practice coverage beginning on Tuesday. Now, that's nothing new. Anybody who really gets pumped up for the NFL draft, you can watch all of these outlets. It's been this way now for the last couple of years. And you can look at the practices and find out a ton about these prospects as they get ready for the Senior Bowl game. Okay, well, that's great. But what about the Shrine Bowl? Now, that comes up first, and it's used to be known for primarily adding depth to the draft. Although this year, Colorado quarterback Shedeur is a key participant and a magnet for a lot of people interested in the NFL draft. Now, the Shrine Bowl is going to be played next Thursday, January 30th in Arlington, Texas at AT&T Stadium, the home of the Dallas Cowboys. Those practice sessions are going to start this Saturday and run through Tuesday. Now, Giants defensive coordinator Shane Bowen is going to be the head coach of the West team. Inside linebackers coach John Egarugru is going to be the defensive coordinator for Bowen. Last April, and this is where it gets interesting, not only is Sanders going to be at the Shrine Bowl, but last April, a record 57 players from the Shrine Bowl were drafted into the National Football League, including Giants running back Tyrone Tracy and Giants linebacker Darius Muasau. Okay? Giants got 2 draft picks from the Shrine Bowl. So you're going to want to pay attention to not only both of these games, but for the first time in history, the Shrine Bowl practices are now also going to be available to us as the public. You don't necessarily have to be a media member to either go down to the game and see the practices or to go down to the game and see the game. The Shrine Bowl has done something very unique. This year, they are allowing their practices as well to be put online through a free streaming video service. So organizers signed with Lights Out Sports TV. Lights Out Sports TV. That is a production company which has a free streaming website and app owned by former NFL Pro Bowl linebacker Sean Merriman, who played with the San Diego Chargers and the Buffalo Bills. So one of the things I did a couple of days ago when I found out about this, because there are going to be plenty of fruitful prospects coming out of this draft, and I found out that, holy moly, they're going to televise their practices too, and that starts this week on Saturday, days before the Senior Bowl. This is a great opportunity to expand your horizons to be able to find out about more of these players. In fact, last year, 8 Shrine Bowl players were drafted in the first 3 rounds of the draft. They're raising their level. They're raising their Q factor. They are raising their standards. Remember, both of these All-Star games are now taking junior eligible players for the draft. So there's a lot more talent to go around, and not all of it can fit into the Senior Bowl. So the Shrine is getting a lot of really tasty leftovers. So with that in mind, I recently had an opportunity to talk to Sean Merriman about exactly what he was going to do with his company and the coverage of the Shrine Bowl practices that are going to help the fans know more about these prospects. And of course, exactly what it was that intrigued him so that he wanted to get involved with this project.
You know, for one, it's been something that's there's been a passion, right? Not too many times you get a chance to leave what you love to do, right? Which is playing football and get a chance to do what I do. On the production side of Lights Out Sports TV, which is my new streaming platform. And you know, I always thought this, Beat West Shrine 100th year, 100th annual year. And I just thought it'd be special that everybody get a chance to see the practice. Like, you know, the Senior Bowl guys, like, we all watch practices. And I thought that the East West Shrine Bowl should have practices. So a lot of these guys are planning on getting ready for the draft, right? They're trying to improve their draft stock. There'll be a lot of scouts, a lot of coaches, GMs, some owners are stopping through that week. You know, we hear some big name. Doris Sanders just committed to coming, and Travis Hunter and Cam Ward. I mean, this thing is locked and loaded for East West Shrine. So we want to make this thing as interactive as possible, right? Close on those one-on-one drills. We want to see, you know, we want to show the fans what these guys got to go through in order to, you know, improve their draft stock and get to where they want to be.
Well, Sean, as someone who obviously has devoted their time to football over the course of many, many years, you understand the importance of these practices at these all-star games. These are like the auditions, kind of, right, for these guys as they go in front of the pro scouts. A lot of people will always say, well, the game is one thing, but the practices, that's where the scouts and the coaches really get their hands on these guys. So if you can, describe for me the kinds of things that fans should be looking for when they see your webcast of these practices.
Yeah, so first and foremost, you're absolutely correct. This is the time to shine. This is what the scouts and the NFL want to see. It's one thing to do something good in the game, but they want to see your practice habits. They want to see you come out, you know, the first day starts on Saturday the 25th. They want to see what you look like on the 26th. If you got a bad day, you come back out, you get back on schedule on the 27th. They want to see the practice schedule and how you perform when everyone's looking at you. You know, good or bad days. I think this is so important for these scouts and people, and also the fans, man. I think that, you know, a lot of people nowadays, Hard Knocks and all these things become really important because it gives you an inside look on what these guys got to go through day in and day out. And that's why these practices are so important. I'm glad these West Shrine Bowl went with us, went with Lights Out Sports. And they get a chance. We get a chance to show how we want to make it look, right? Being a former player myself, I know what fans want to see, these one-on-one matchups against the wide receivers and DBs and offensive linemen and defensive linemen. They want to see these hand combat drills. They want to feel like they're there, and we're going to provide that for them.
Again, folks, I want to remind you that Lights Out, Sean Merriman's streaming television service, is going to be covering from North Texas University the practices for the Shrine Bowl from January 25th through the 28th. Now, we do know, you mentioned Sanders is going to be one of those guys coming to this game. And, folks, if you don't know it, some of the names, Trey Hendrickson, Zadarius Smith, Jimmy Garoppolo, have been some of the guys who have come out of this game. And, Sean, I think what's important is that these All-Star games are now allowing junior-eligible guys to come to the practices and participate. That wasn't the case years ago, which means there is a better level of guys who might be coming into the draft, right?
No doubt about that. And, I was a guy that came out as a junior, and I 100% would have came in practice and kind of gave my final touches and what the scouts are going to see come draft day. And so, I was extremely happy that they made that rule and they made that adjustment, because you got guys that are declaring for the draft, right? They could be second or third round guys. If they go and show out these couple of days, they go and show what they can do. Because, look, the combines and pro days are extremely important. But I think that most scouts and teams want to see you against another man, how it looks out there, how you guys practice it, and the speed and tempo and what you go about it. So that's why these 4 days, the 25th to the 28th, will be so critical. And when I tell you that we have the most interactive practice for Lights Out Sports TV, like, we're going to be in there. It's going to be hard for the fans to turn TV, because we're going to be so close in that huddle that they're going to feel like they're there.
I'm worried about you grabbing a helmet and getting on the field.
I'm worried too. You're not the only one.
So last year, I looked up the numbers. The Shrine Game had 57 guys, a record for the game, the Shrine Bowl, drafted. 92 of them went to the Combine. So, there is absolutely no question you're going to see guys who are going to wind up in the league. For example, last year, the Giants, Mursal, the linebacker, and Tracy, the running back, both came out of the Shrine Bowl. So, Sean, I think it's important to understand that for whatever reason, and I know that Sanders is bringing a bunch of his Colorado teammates to the game, there are big-time players that you're going to see in the pros that are in this game. I want people to get that, because I know for a while the Shrine Bowl didn't have as much luster, but it's picking it up again.
No doubt about that. This is the biggest confirmed list they've had in 100 years. They've never had this many top confirmed athletes be there. And also, too, just the people, our celebrities. I was talking to Terry Crews, the actor, who also played for the Chargers a long time ago, and back then the Redskins. He's coming out. He called me and said, Sean, I'm coming out this day. I said, what? You're coming out? And he, this is just a week that everybody wants to come and evaluate times. They want to see who's next. And, for the East-West Shrine to go with us for that week of practice, it's unreal, right? It just feels surreal that, we get this opportunity and we want to take the most of it, because I have a different eye, right? I've been there. I know what the grind looks like. And I want to show these guys in a great light, man, because it's not easy to be under that pressure with all these scouts and GMs and teams that's watching you. Sometimes you might go out and drop a ball. You might have got to go out and redeem yourself the next play. It is a battle. And so I'm impressed. These guys are working that well under pressure, and I'm happy it gets channeled to show on Lights Out Sports TV.
All right, let me ask you a question. So as people watch this, and specifically Sanders is going to draw a lot of attention. And as you know, too, sometimes, Sean, guys don't wind up playing in the game, but they'll go through the practices. So what should fans look for when they click on your link and they're watching these practices, when they see a Sanders running through quarterback drills? What does an educated football eye want to see as they evaluate?
First and foremost, you talk about a guy who could easily be the top 3 pick of the draft, right? This never happens. I don't think they've ever had anybody that's going in the top 3 supposedly come and practice. And also, too, I think it says a lot about Shedeur Sanders, right? It says a lot about him and his commitment to football and what he wants. I think that he wants to prove that he could be the number 1, right? Not number 3 or 4. And so I think all of these days are important. A lot of big interviews is coming. Can't wait to see Prime. Prime Man's going to be there as well. Can't wait to talk to him. I haven't got a chance to see him in person in some years. So it's just, for 2 reasons, right? I'm glad this whole Lights Out Sports TV, but also me just my love and passion for the game and being around these younger guys, this young energy of this next wave of guys who become superstars in the NFL one day. And we get a chance to capture all that and make a big deal out of it. Those
All right, now let's talk for a second about Shedeur Sanders out of Colorado. He's going to be wearing number 2 for the Western team at the Shrine Bowl. He'll be number 2 for the West. Now, if you're looking for other quarterbacks in this game, maybe the highest rated quarterback besides Sanders is probably a late day 3 pick, and that would be Kyle McCord out of Syracuse, the former Ohio State quarterback who transferred to Syracuse. He's going to be with the East team, and he'll be wearing number 6 as I go through my paperwork here. Over 4,300 yards throwing this year, 29 touchdowns, and only 12 interceptions. He goes 6'1", 205 pounds. He might be the highest rated quarterback after Sanders, who's going to be in this game. So I bring that to your attention because obviously Sanders is the magnet for the Shrine Bowl. We'll go over another couple of folks after we finish talking to Sean, some other high-profile guys that will be at positions that the Giants would be interested in, specifically at defensive tackle, cornerback, and along the offensive line. But right now, let's go back to Sean Merriman, who, as you know, when he was a player, he always stuck his nose into the middle of the action on the field, right? So it really shouldn't surprise anybody that he really stuck his hands into this production plan for how they are going to cover these Shrine Bowl practices.
Personally speaking, as a veteran NFL guy, are there some other players? Sanders is getting the most attention, and I get that. He's a quarterback. He's going to be a high pick. Certainly New York Giants fans are very interested in getting a look at him too. Are there a handful of other guys that you're particularly interested in as well?
Yeah, I can't wait to see Ward there. He's another guy that's going to be a top draft pick, and we have confirmed that he's going to be there as well. I believe he's even practicing also. And like I said, this has never happened. This has never happened in the history of the Shrine that you got this many top draft picks. And, of course, I'll be sticking my nose down in the offensive defense lineman one-on-one drills a little bit because I got to get closer to that action again. But I'll say, just get a chance to meet the coaches. These guys who are setting up practice, who's taking time out of their day to be a part of this, and all the people there in North Texas at the facility that we've had to go back and forth to make sure we got right angles and right camera views and all the production trucks. I mean, it's just been incredible leading up to this thing, and I can't wait for it to get here.
I know your executive producer or your producer will have more control over how it's actually covered, but are you guys going to mic up some players, or are you going to have a field camera like down on the field as well, overhead? How do you anticipate him actually doing the coverage?
Yeah, so there'll be a camera right behind the offensive line on the one-on-one drills against the defensive line. And what we're doing with the wide receivers and cornerbacks, we'll start off on that field camera right behind the wide receiver. Then when it gets into the aerial view, it'll go up to the camera up top so they can see what happens with the route. But we wanted to get these guys off the line of scrimmage, see what it looks like. A lot of hand-to-hand combat drills and getting off the line of scrimmage, see what these guys look like on press coverage. And then we'll go to the aerial view. So it's something that I wanted to make sure that we got, and we're completely ready for it.
See, I love that because we're not talking about some video or television producer making that call. You look at it with a football eye, and you said to him, look, this is what I need to see.
That's exactly what I said, to be honest. You couldn't be stupid words right in my mouth. And it was like, guys, this what matters. This is what people want to see. This is when people come to training camps, the NFL or whatever they are. Well, this is what they come to see. They love to see these one-on-one drills, how guys pan out against pressure. What defensive cornerbacks can do press coverage and cover a man one-on-one. Does he need any help over top? These are the things that all the fans who love football, they want to see, and we're going to make sure they have it.
All right, final thing I want to ask you about this particular game. Then I have a personal question I got to ask for Giants fans because they're going to want to know. But the mission of this game, obviously, the Shriners Children's Charities, this game has been around for 100 years, and the kind of work that they do in the community, I got to think that was also something that was very important to you.
It was so, you know, it's even bigger than that. I obviously from the outside in, you know, the Shriners do and what they've all been about. But once you get in the mix, you get the details of how much work they put in over these 100 years, how many people they help. I've started to feel honored, man, to be a part of this because they give back so much and the charities and the people they've had involved in this thing over the last 100 years. Can you imagine? And so for them to have us a part of this and have Lights Out Sports TV a part of this, I started to feel really honored.
I think that is so awesome that these players and all of these folks who can benefit from the charity are getting this additional exposure. As we told you earlier, folks, Lights Out TV, the streaming service to televise these Shrine Bowl practices, this is a first. They've never had them available to be viewed before, and this is a really, really cool thing. So, Sean, I certainly applaud you for doing it. And I got to ask you this. Giant fans, I don't know how many of them have ever come up to you before, but you recall that the Giants made the big trade with Eli Manning and Phillip Rivers, and you were taken by the Chargers in 2005, okay? What would have happened to your career? How would it have changed if the Giants and the Chargers had not made that trade? You could have wound up with the Giants, or maybe you would have wound up somewhere else.
From what I've heard about everything that happened, I would have been with the Giants, and it still is around. I spend a lot of time in New York, and I'll be sitting around somewhere, some venue, or maybe having some coffee, and somebody will walk up to me and say, "Man, you should have been a Giant." I still get that to this day, man. And I'm from Maryland, to Washington D.C., so very close on the East Coast. So it resonated all the way down to Maryland. I should have been a Giant, and people still come up to me to this day about that.
Well, two-time All-Pro, I think it worked out pretty good for you anyway, didn't it?
It worked out. You guys got trophies, and we got some games won. So there you go.
All right, finally, once again, folks, Lights Out TV, Sean Merriman's production company, streaming live practices from North Texas University from January 25th through January 28th for the 100th Shrine Bowl. Sean, I appreciate your time. Unless there's something else you want to tell me, like, again, you're going to get eligibility, I think we'll set you on your way.
No, I appreciate it, man. I got one more year left. I left as a junior, so don't mind if I lined up a couple snaps.
Be well, Sean. Thank you for what you're doing.
You got it. Thank you.
Take care.
So great stuff from former NFL All-Pro linebacker Sean Merriman, who played with the Chargers and the Bills. Hey, you know what? Anything that we can get as fans and as media who do not get to make these trips to all of these all-star games is a blessing. So to think that we're going to be able to watch not only all the Senior Bowl practices the following week through NFL Network, NFL Plus, and the ESPN family of networks, think about this now. If you're a football junkie and you're an NFL draft junkie, thanks to Sean Merriman and lightsoutsportstv.com, we're going to have the chance to watch free televised streaming of the practices for the Shrine Bowl. And I'm excited about it because I don't get to go to these all-star games. I go to the Combine usually every year, and I'm there for 4 days, and I get an awful lot of intel, and that's really great. But to be able to watch these practices is just a tremendous benefit now. So both of the all-star games are going to have outlets where we can check it out and be able to find out what these prospects look like. All right, so finally, to recap this, it's Lights Out Sports TV, oneword.com. Daily coverage starts on Saturday this weekend, and it runs through Tuesday of next week from 9 a.m. Eastern Time to 12:30 p.m., 3.5 hours of live coverage of the Shrine Bowl practices. And specifically, if you're interested in a quarterback, Shedeur Sanders of Colorado is going to be practicing during the course of the week and playing in the Shrine Bowl game. So there's a lot of people out there who are insisting that the Giants take a quarterback at number 3. Whether or not Sanders gets to them at number 3 is highly debatable. But at least you're going to get an opportunity, if you want to to watch and see how he goes about his business as the scouts try to run him through a whole host of drills during the course of the week. So I think it's a great get for the Shrine Bowl to get Sanders because he is such a magnet, and it's a great get for Lights Out Sports TV to be able to bring that coverage to us. So that's our big story tonight in terms of how we can help you prepare for the draft. It was, for some reason, I didn't see a lot of publicity about it. I got wind of it. I'm always into it. I watch the Shrine Bowl every year. It used to be called the Shrine Game or the Shrine Classic years and years ago. I've always watched it because I've always kept my eye on somebody who might wind up being a 4th or a 5th round pick, like Tyrone Tracy was a 5th rounder for the Giants this year. That's always intrigued me because everybody always paid attention to the Senior Bowl. And I'm like, you know what? I want to know more about some of these other guys because once you get into the 3rd, 4th, 5th rounds, you got to start digging. So I'm really excited about it. And when I heard that this was happening, I had to put in a call to Sean Merriman and say, hey, look, you're doing something it's gotten me excited as I prepare for the draft. I have a feeling a lot of Giants fans, knowing that they've got the 3rd overall pick, they're going to be excited too and want to check some of this stuff out. So that's where it's at. That's how we start off tonight's program with one of our theme shows, right? Next Wednesday, we're going to talk to someone else with another theme show where we're going to talk a little bit more about maybe some of the guys to watch at the Senior Bowl. We'll talk about what we saw during the Shrine Bowl practices as we continue to get you prepped for the offseason and some of the guys who might be on the Giants draft board. Now, at the Shrine practices, let me give you a few guys that you may want to look for as you're watching. And I think it's helpful. We all understand that the Giants are certainly going to be in the market for defensive linemen, specifically defensive tackles. They will probably want to add cornerback depth, and they will probably also be looking for offensive line depth, right? We know that because that's what John Mara told us a few weeks ago. Got to get a quarterback, got to enhance the defense, and got to add O-line depth. All right, with that in mind, I went through the committed rosters for the Shrine Bowl, and I picked out some guys here who are expected to be first half of the draft picks, so you can kind of focus in on them. All right, we told you Shedeur Sanders is going to be for the West team. He'll be wearing number 2. Again, if you happen to be a local New York fan, you're probably interested in Kyle McCord, the Syracuse quarterback. I know we got a lot of Syracuse fans in the New York metropolitan area. I get that. So he's going to be there for the East, wearing number 6. I don't expect McCord to be anything more than possibly a backup in the NFL. And certainly, if he gets drafted late in the 3rd day, I mean, he did throw for over 4,000 yards this year, so it wouldn't be surprising if he's a late 3rd day pick. I would not necessarily expect the Giants to take him, but again, local New York fans, I know they always like to follow Syracuse a little bit, so I give that to you. He'll be on the East team wearing number 6. Defensive tackle. Now, Kenneth Grant out of Michigan is 6'3", 340 pounds. There is a legitimate chance that he is going to go in the 1st round, probably somewhere in the lower 3rd of the 1st round. But Kenneth Grant, outside of Shedeur Sanders, in all likelihood, will be the highest pick coming out of the Shrine Bowl this year. He is a horse. He will be wearing East number 97. 97. Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle out of Michigan. He has unbelievable power, strength, size, tremendous force against the run, and it looks like he's got enough of moves that you could coach him up, and he could also have some pass rush skills too. Imagine sitting him next to Dexter Lawrence should Grant somehow slip and fall to the top of the 2nd round. Another gentleman to look at defensive tackle, Nazir Stackhouse out of Georgia. He goes 6'1", 320. I'm sorry. Yes, 6'3", 320. I couldn't read my scribble. 6'3", 320. Nazir Stackhouse. He will be East number 92, wearing 92 for the East squad. So both Grant and Stackhouse play for the East. Grant is 97. Stackhouse is 92. From what I understand, Stackhouse has a third-round grade on him, but it's a make-it grade. Remember, third round usually is a make-it grade. Sometimes you get lucky and you get a make-it grade player in the fourth round. Stackhouse is a make-it grade player in the third round by people who I have talked to this point. So he would certainly be somebody that you might want to think about if you're still looking for a defensive tackle at that point. Now, there is a late first round cornerback that was invited to this game, Shavon Revel Jr. out of East Carolina. Now, the problem is he tore his ACL after the third game of the season. He is coming to the Shrine Bowl, but he's only going to do interviews. So you won't get to see him at the practice sessions, but I do suspect there's a good chance that they will interview him. Now, why is this important? He's 6'3", and he's over 190 pounds. For a cornerback, he has tremendous length and physical tools, and there is no question if he did not tear his ACL, he'd have been a high first-round pick. But because of the injury, and we know ACLs are easily repaired these days because of medicine and technology, okay, so he's going to drop down into the late first round. But Shavon Revel Jr. is certainly out of East Carolina, a guy that is going to go by the end of the first round. I'm pretty sure of that. So he's a corner who you certainly want to pay attention to should he have an interview during the Shrine Bowl practice coverage. Then the other gentleman that I thought was very interesting, and he's going to be playing for the West team, that's Brandon Crenshaw Dixon. Brandon Crenshaw Dixon, West team number 65. Okay? 315 pounds. I have him listed. I want to make sure I got this right. I have him listed at 6'7". Okay, played for the Florida Gators, and I just confirmed it is 6'7", 322 pounds. I'm sorry, 322 pounds. I thought that was a bit light because I've seen some video of him. I thought 315 was a tad light. He's probably well over 320 right now, but he's from Florida. He's West number 65. He is a right tackle. He is projected to be a fourth round draft choice. But because of his skill set and his measurables, he's going to need a little work and he's going to need a little polish. But this is a guy, who has intrigued a lot of NFL scouts. And they believe that he's going to be somewhat of a sleeper, that he's got tools that are very, 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 very much wanted in the National Football League. So if they could just coach him up and polish him up a bit, he could wind up being a really big steal for somebody in the fourth round. Brandon Crenshaw Dixon, West team number 65. So we've given you quarterback, defensive tackle, a corner who unfortunately will not play, but maybe will get interviewed, and a offensive lineman. All of these guys would be people that you probably want to pay a little closer attention to when they come on the screen for these Shrine Bowl practices beginning on Saturday. Once again, from 9 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. That's Eastern Standard Time this Saturday through Tuesday. And once again, lightsoutsportstv.com. And we thank Sean Merriman for taking the time to do this interview today and let us in on exactly what's going on and how we can help prepare for the NFL draft. All right, folks, Now it's time for you and me. We got the draft stuff out of the way. We're going to see how long we can take it tonight. I don't know. We're already, let's see, 8:35. We're already a half hour in. I don't know. We'll go an hour tonight? Maybe. We go 90 minutes? Maybe. There have been some shows recently. I thought we were going to do 90, and we wound up doing over 2.5 hours. So it's up to you guys. You know, you're going to drive this show for me tonight because we've already gone through the theme that we wanted to go through. We will be talking, I suppose, in just a little bit about the Giants' new secondary coach. But for the moment, let's get caught up on some of the chats as you guys have written some stuff to me. Big Blue says, good evening. Look forward to the show. The pain of this past season continues come Sunday with Philly and Washington. Nothing more to say. Then we won't say it, Big Blue. Leo Luca Rendisi says, I like Jackson Dart at 3. If he is the best at 3, he'll be gone by round 2. Well, yeah, there's no doubt that Jackson Dart, the quarterback out of Mississippi, which is Eli's alma mater, he's got a lot to offer. Now, his measurables are going to be interesting, specifically his hand size for being able to hold and control the NFL ball, as well as his height. I believe right now a lot of people are listing him at 6'2". He certainly does not want to be shorter than that. And why does that come into play? Well, because of the height of a lot of your pass rushers in the NFL, whether they're defensive linemen getting their arms up or it's edge rushers coming in on the blitz and getting their arms up. It does make a difference. That's why, to be frank with you, you know, most scouts prefer quarterbacks coming into the league that are 6'3", 6'4". But if he's 6'2", it may hurt him just a speck. But that's certainly going to be interesting. You don't want to find out when Jackson Dart goes to the Senior Bowl, if he does any measurements or if he does them at the Combine or the Pro Day. You don't want to hear that Jackson Dart is 6 feet and a half inch. Okay? You definitely do not want to hear that. That would not go well for him and will drop him like a stone. But he has mobility. He's got the arm. He's got the production. To me, he's a very exciting day 2 quarterback prospect, so that if you're going to sign a veteran bridge, as I have professed in March, you should be able to look at a quarterback project on day 2 in the second or third rounds and not worry about getting a quarterback at number 3. And by the way, I'll have more to say about another quarterback in just a couple of minutes. All right, let's see. Who else do we have here? Big Blue says, I concur on Dart. Yeah, well, I think a lot of people do, especially after the way he performed down the stretch of the season. Christine says she leans towards Dart as well. You know, more and more people, since I first started to talk about what the Giants should do at quarterback, are leaning towards the bridge quarterback and then drafting one later on. Not drafting one at 3, but waiting, either trading back up into the end of the first round or taking one in the second or taking one in the third. That does seem to be gaining a lot of momentum. Of course, I have felt that all along. And when I first came out with that, I don't know, a month and a half ago, whatever it was, I had already determined this, quite frankly, after Daniel Jones, after the Carolina game, and he was pulled from the lineup and then obviously released at his request. Right then, I already started doing my digging on like what would make the most sense here. And I had already kind of put it in my mind. It's going to be a bridge quarterback, a veteran, and you draft a project and you see how it goes and see what you can do to set yourself up to minimize the risk as much as possible. And if you can, try to double down and give yourself extra pathways to help your football team. So I've been all in on the bridge since the Carolina game. or since that game ended and Daniel Jones was going to be pulled. I've been all in on that. And then when I finally started to talk about it, either on this show or Big Blue Kickoff Live, my goodness, people were up in arms screaming at the top of their lungs about how crazy I was. But as weeks go on and the days pass by, it does seem like there is a huge groundswell of support for the bridge quarterback and drafting the prospect or the project quarterback later on in the draft and not taking one with the third overall pick. So I'm very appreciative that I started that momentum going, and the wave seems to be picking up a lot of steam. Christine says you're still looking forward to the bowls. Well, the two All-Star games, yes, Christine, because that's really a flea market, if you will, of talent. Scott Young, I don't believe Dart, he means Dart, not Dark, is going to make it to the third round. I think he might go early second. And Scott, there's certainly a chance. I mean, most people that I've talked to this point believe that Milroe from Alabama is going to be the third quarterback taken. Now, as I said earlier on a chat, and I typed it out, and it's my way of being funny, right? Quarterbacks seem to rise like yeast in the oven when it comes time for the NFL draft. That's why we've got these two guys, right now at 1 and 2 or 2 and 1, however you want to call it. The Miami quarterback, the Colorado quarterback, 1 and 2, 2 and 1, whatever. That's where everybody seems to want to push them. But who's going to be the third quarterback taken? Well, the consensus seems to be it's going to be Milroe. Now, is Milroe seriously in a really good draft or a good quarterback class? Is he really a first-round pick? No. Probably not. As I've said to you before, it's been expressed to me by a number of football people that none of these quarterbacks would have been in the top 5 quarterbacks taken in last year's draft. Okay, so we get that. Milroe is gaining steam. The Alabama QB is gaining an awful lot of steam. So it is entirely possible that he finds himself late in the first round. It's entirely possible that either someone at the bottom of the first round either takes him for themselves or trades the pick out to somebody who wants to take a stab at him and have that 5th-year team option so that they could have him under longer control if they're looking to develop him long term. That is entirely possible. In fact, I'm starting to believe more and more Milroe will go at the end or very, very late in the first round. So then who's the 4th quarterback going to be taken? I would be very surprised if it's not Jackson Dart. Now, here's the problem. How high does that 4th quarterback go? Especially if Milroe goes late in the first round, does that mean you've got to get Dart early in the second? Do the Giants at the beginning of the second round have to grab him there? They might. I'm starting to believe that Dart won't get out of the second round. Again, these guys always rise. So, if you're the Giants, do you pull the trigger there? Or do you trade down a few spots in the second round? Or do you try to trade up from the third round to get a second pick in the second round if Dart starts to slip? All it takes is one team to grab him, and then he's gone. Now, if those are the consensus top 4 quarterbacks, Ward, Sanders, or Sanders, Ward, and then Milroe and Dart, where do you go from there? I'm curious. Let me read a couple of more chats here, and then I've got a question for you folks. You could come at me on the chat if you like. I'd much prefer talking to you. You see at the bottom of the screen, we've got the link. Video call or an audio call is certainly something that we can do. In fact, here, let me send over to the chat area. You can, let's see over here. Hold on. You can join in on this talk here. All right. And there's the link. I just put it up. And again, it can be a video call or an audio call. Don't be shy, folks. And what we'll do is we'll chat about if the Giants don't get any one of those 4 quarterbacks, who would be the 5th quarterback that you might be looking at in the 3rd or 4th round. Let me go back to the chats, though, for just a bit. Okay? And let's see here. Let's see here. Where are we? Okay. I'm back here. Christine, of course, says good evening to all my chat friends. And Christine, we always love having you as part of the program. And there's Big Blue saying Eli Manning to New York Giants, Sean Merriman to the Chargers. Indeed, as you heard me ask Merriman about that draft choice that went in the package with Phillip Rivers for Eli Manning, it was later used by San Diego. One of the draft choices was used for Sean Merriman. I had to ask him about that for sure. There was no question. You'll notice also in the chat, I have given you guys the schedule for the Shrine Bowl practices, as well as the internet site that Sean Merriman is streaming the practices on. So that stuff is available for you. Okay. G-Men 7. Do you see Jackson Dart being in the mix for the Giants at number 3? No, I do not. I would be very surprised, when you talk about these guys going higher. Yeah, Milroe will sneak into the 1st round. I'm really starting to believe that. Does Dart also sneak into the 1st round? Well, if he does, consensus says he's behind Milroe. So, look, here's one thing I'm going to tell you, G-Men 7. And while I don't think anybody believes that a 3rd quarterback is going to be taken at pick number 3, nobody believes that. There is the philosophy, okay? There is the philosophy in the National Football League that if you really want a guy and you believe in him and you feel like you go into the draft pounding your fist on the table saying, I must have this player, well, then you take the player. And it doesn't matter how many people criticize you for the slot that he was taken in, because that's the player you wanted, and you guaranteed yourself that you were going to get him. So when you get called up to the board, you take the guy, and it doesn't matter what anybody thinks about what slot you took him in. So I would be totally surprised in every way if a quarterback went 1, 2, and 3 in this draft. But if it does happen, well, here's what I would say. Every personnel department and every general manager in the National Football League owes it to their fans, their ownership, their coaches, and their players to be all in on the guy that they pick, especially in the 1st round and especially in the top 10. So if you are all in your team's draft room and everybody says we are unanimous, we have to get that player, the GM has to take him. He has a responsibility to take the player. If the draft room is unanimous, then you've got to take the player. That's it. There's really no debate. So I always, when I approach the draft, remember, folks, I come at it differently than most media people do. Most media people try to tell you, and they will smoke their way through saying, I know who they're going to take. I have a leak. I have a source. I have this. I have that. Basically, they're like weathermen. Okay? They don't know. Okay? They don't. But they're like weathermen, and they're throwing mud against the wall, and they're seeing that there's clouds coming toward the east. So they're banking on the fact that the clouds are going to hit and that there's going to be rain. So they'll take some educated guesses, or at least they think they've got educated guesses, and they'll tell you, well, this is what the team's going to do. I don't do that. I will tell you flat out, I take the position that with the limited information that media have, okay, because we don't have but a small fraction of information about these prospects compared to what a team has in its database. Trust me when I tell you that. I tell you what I would do if I were in their shoes, simply with my frame of reference, my understanding of the game, my understanding of what the team needs, my understanding of where they are with their salary cap. I tell you how I would do it if I was the GM. I do not predict what they will do, because many times those are two different things. Last year, I said I would take Rome Odunze. I have a very strong preference to get a big skyscraping wide receiver in my wide receiver room. I also said, and I agreed with John on Big Blue Kickoff Live, even at the Combine, when I said I would prefer Rome Odunze, I think, and I hate to get into the prediction business, when John said to me, I think the Giants will take Malik Neighbors because he's a better fit for the Giants system. I said, absolutely. I absolutely see it. Malik Neighbors fits Daboll's playbook, Daboll's scheme, and the way the Giants are building their team. I see Neighbors being a better fit. Personally, I like to get a skyscraper in the room. A guy who makes big plays, a guy who's very reliable, and a guy who's got really, really sure hands. So that's fine. I just want to make sure that you understand the criteria where I'm coming from, so you don't say, well, what do you think the Giants are going to do? I'm not going to tell you that, because that's not the way I approach the draft. Okay. Christine says, Milrose in second or third rounds, your thoughts? I'm sure that's what she means. Milroe. Not Milroy, Milroe. Yeah, there you go. Sorry if I misspelled, says Christine. Typos. Hey, if you read me on Twitter, you know I got the Italian thumbs, and I am horrible with typos. You know, this stupid cell phone with all those little letters on the screen. Oh, my goodness. It drives me up a wall. Anyway, back to your question. No, I don't think there's any way Milroe gets to the third round. That's practically impossible. Second round, at the top of the second round, maybe, but you're probably taking a chance, Christine. Big Blue says, I like the off-season theme show Wednesdays. Well, Big Blue, I appreciate that, and we need feedback. You know, that's kind of what I want to do here. At least for the time being, I'd like to do theme shows for the next several weeks. I've already, like I said, next week, we'll recap what we saw at the Shrine at the practices, and we'll preview the Senior Bowl. We're going to tell you next week from somebody who's an expert about some of the players that you're going to want to watch during the Senior Bowl practices and the Senior Bowl game, right? I mean, look, I'm assuming that you guys are like me right now. You very much want to get a good look and start cracking down on the homework of these college players. I mean, free agency does come first in March. I understand that. But this is the time we got to start cracking the books on these college players to find out what it is that they've got to offer. So thank you, Big Blue. Christine says she agrees. Okay, that's cool. So hopefully, these theme shows will go well, and we'll get the kind of audience that wants them, and then we'll keep these things up. Because if there's really, if you guys don't come to the program, and we don't get enough numbers on the program, then there's no point in even doing the program. All right. Christine says, do you have any stats on Mason Graham? Oh, man. Mason Graham. All right. Let me tell you something about this guy. If you've watched any video on him at all, it's not about stats. It's about his motor that runs as hot as it possibly can be. He's about shedding blocks, slicing through open lanes. It's about taking on double teams. It's virtually impossible to block him one-on-one. Mason Graham, the Michigan defensive tackle, for me, if you were at number 3 and Travis Hunter was on the table, I see him as more of an NFL corner than I do a wide receiver. I think I'd have to take Travis Hunter. However, if Travis Hunter were gone and I was sitting there at 3, and I didn't make a trade down to 6, I've already discussed this with you guys on this show and on the Big Blue Kickoff Live show during the day. If I could go down from 3 to 6, provided I got next year's number 1 and next year's number 2 from the Las Vegas Raiders. I would make that trade because it would give me premier draft capital in my pocket for next year in case I need to move up in the first round to maybe go get a quarterback. Okay. Mason Graham, for me, is probably my second favorite player in this draft after Travis Hunter. It's not about stats. I could go to the stat line. You could go to the internet and just look at the stat line. That's not what Mason Graham is about. Mason Graham is about that word that every single defensive coordinator loves to use: disruptive. He is a major disruptive force. And paired with Dexter Lawrence, man, oh man, oh man. Just wow. Just wow. The havoc that those two guys could cause inside. That would be really fun to watch. Christine says, or Williams. Again, I'm not interested in stats right now, Christine. I'll be perfectly frank with you. I'm more interested in looking at traits. I have not looked at any of his tape yet. I'll be getting to all that tape study very, very shortly. I've done some preliminary things on the top defensive players. Let's see here. Danny Dudd's ghost. Now that he's gone, can you finally admit Daniel Jones was an awful quarterback and a mistake from day one? He had 4 to 5 good games out of 69. And he also says 3 of them were in his rookie year. Well, if you want the shortest answer of all, Danny Dudd's ghost, the answer is no. I am not ready to say what you have said because I don't believe it's true. Okay. Craig, you said Rome over Neighbors. No. Understand what I said, Craig. I am preferential to a skyscraping receiver in my receivers room. That comes from watching guys like Hakeem Nicks, who had great length, was not the tallest receiver, but had tremendous length and very large hands. From watching Plexico Burress and the impact that he had on the Giants offense. I think that if I were making up a team, my wide receiver room would have at least one guy who's in the top three receivers, okay? Because I want him to be on the field an awful lot, who is at least 6'2" with tremendous length. If the guy can be 6'3" or 6'4", even better. But I am all about making sure that if I've got a bunch of receivers who are 5'10", 5'11", 6 feet, 6'1", if my wide receiver room has a bunch of those guys, that's nice. But I want a skyscraper in the room. I want a guy who's going to make it very easy for my quarterback to see him and to be able to say he's going to throw it in his vicinity into that big catch radius in that big catch box. And my skyscraper, with his length and his physicality, is going to go get that ball. So, Craig, I repeat, I always understood that Neighbors was a better fit for the Giants scheme. Never doubted that for 1 second. A blind man could possibly see that. It was not hard to see. My preference would be to get a skyscraper in the room. And I'd like to see the Giants get a skyscraper in the room this year. Okay, right now, Bryce Ford Wheaton is 6'4", but they didn't let him play receiver. He was strictly utilized as a gunner. If the Giants add a receiver to that room this year, I hope it is a skyscraper. Craig says Neighbors is a Jamar Chase clone. If they're not Julio Jones or Megatron, it's a hard pass. Well, no, Neighbors is nowhere near those guys. He had a nice rookie season. I get the 100-plus catches. Absolutely. But, he's got a ways to go before he's any of those guys. I mean, you're talking about creme de la creme. Neighbors made the all-rookie team by the Pro Football Writers Association of America, and that's fine. I'm all for it. Look, every play the guy made this year was a plus for this team, especially because they were so offensively challenged, they didn't get enough. So please do not misunderstand. I'm not down on Malik Neighbors. I wish he did not have 11 drops. Okay? That, to be fair, you'd like to see your guys, for every 100 catches, have no more than 6 drops. So his number was rather elevated, although I only credited him, or should I say marked him, for 1 drop over the last 5 games, I believe. I'd have to get out my trusty laptop. Christine knows all about that. She likes when I pull the laptop out and I go through those spreadsheets and get all that info that I glean from watching tape and grading tape. I'm not going to do that right now, but I believe it was 1 drop in the last 5 games by Neighbors, but he had 11 for the season, which I believe by most charts was like the 3rd most in the NFL. So, but he was a rookie. And as I always say, rookies will make rookie mistakes. And that's something you have to live with. The biggest thing that Neighbors had to fight this year, and I talked to Mario Manningham about this during the season when he came back to MetLife Stadium for a visit. Neighbors came in and immediately had to be the go-to guy for the Giants. Right out of the box, as a young rookie, coming out of school a year early, he was thrust into a very difficult position of immense pressure where everybody in the stadium knew he needed to be the one headache. on that Giants offense. The one guy who they were going to look to make big, explosive, impactful plays. Everybody knew they were going to force feed him the ball, and he was going to have to make some spectacular things happen on his own. For a young fella coming out of college, especially a year early, that is a tremendous amount of pressure and a very heavy burden to put on that young man. I thought, considering, he held up well. And he certainly has a terrific future ahead of him and tremendous upside. So, Craig, please understand, none of what I said about Odunze has anything to do with my feelings about Malik Neighbors. It's simply an overall philosophy about the room. And if they go and get a skyscraper this year in the room, then you know what? All's good. Sean Jackson says, good evening, Paul. As a Giants fan, I was depressed last Sunday watching Saquon run wild as an Eagle. Then watched MVP candidates Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson battle. The Giants passed on both of them to draft Saquon. Okay. I understand. You know, there was never any question about Saquon Barkley's ability. As Dave Gettleman said, you know, he was touched by football gods and he was going to be fitted for a gold jacket one day. There's never any question about Saquon Barkley's ability. Never. Never. Not from anybody who knows anything about football. He was absolutely worth the number 2 overall pick in the draft. He probably should be the MVP this year in the National Football League. Seriously. Without Saquon Barkley, the Philadelphia Eagles come nowhere close to winning as many games as they did, and they would not be alive playing for the NFC Championship game this weekend. I will unequivocally state that right here and right now. Saquon Barkley has made the difference for the Philadelphia Eagles of just being a good team to being a legitimate contender for the Super Bowl. He took them up an entire notch and a half just by being there and doing what he does. And why? Well, because the Philadelphia Eagles have one of the best lines in football. Okay? Now, before the season, and I will always tell you guys if I've misfired, I thought losing Jason Kelce was going to be a huge blow to their offensive line. I thought the Eagles would take a significant step back because Kelce was not just an outstanding future Hall of Fame center, but he was the heart, the soul, and the glue of what made that Eagles offensive line tick. So when he retired, I was very confident that the Eagles would suffer a gut punch. It did not happen. Cam Jurgens has stepped in marvelously well in every way, shape, and form, and allowed this Philadelphia Eagles offensive line to continue to be one of the best in the National Football League. Is he Kelce? No, he's not Kelce. Is he darn good? Yeah, he's very darn good. To the point where Saquon Barkley, in combination with a line that good, are you kidding me? We saw what happened. 2,000 yards. Unbelievable. Now, it's interesting. Somebody tweeted the other day, Sean, and I saw this, and I didn't want to RT it or make a real comment about it because I didn't want to get people all ticked off. It just wouldn't have made any sense. But look at Tyrone Tracy's stat line from this past season and look at Saquon Barkley's stat line from the 2023 season. Virtually, we're pretty darn close. A couple of places Saquon was a little higher, a couple of places Tyrone Tracy was a little higher. That's because with what the Giants have at their disposal is not what Philly has at their disposal. Philly has a more productive, more intimidating, more explosive wide receiver room. But most of all, Philadelphia has one of the best offensive lines in football. So to look at what Saquon Barkley did for the Giants in his last year with the Giants, and for the amount of money he was being paid, the Giants got virtually the same production that they got out of Barkley, and they would have gotten out of him probably this year for a much cheaper wage with a much younger player in Tyrone Tracy. So in that regard, from a value perspective, the Giants certainly did fine. They came out of that transaction and that trade-off okay. It's a plus for them. Philadelphia came out with triple pluses because they took the risk. They spent a fortune on a guy who had an injury history, knowing that if the big two-letter word, if he stayed healthy, that they would have the offensive line and the complementary pieces around him to allow him to max out his abilities. And that is exactly what has happened. So Barkley won because he got his cash. The Eagles won because they're now in the NFC Championship game, although he's got to get through that game healthy and be able to give them a championship level performance if they're going to win the Lombardi Trophy in the Super Bowl. If Barkley gets hurt in the NFC Championship game and then does not play in the Super Bowl, the Eagles are done. They will not win the Super Bowl. He is the difference. That's it. It's that simple. He is the difference. He was brought to Philly and paid a mega amount of cash with a risk factor for one reason only, and that was to get the ring, to grab the Lombardi Trophy. Anything short of that is a failure. So he's got to stay healthy this week and help them get to the big game and then go get the ring in the big game for this to truly pay off for the Philadelphia Eagles. Two Giants Goofball says, what's up? Hey, good to see you. Craig says, Travis Hunter in the first, O-line in second with a tackle, guard flexibility. Oh, tackle / guard flexibility. Well, Craig, that usually happens, right? When you take a tackle coming out of college, there's always the hope that he will have some guard flexibility. And at the same time, if you take a center or a guard, you hope that he's got either center or guard flexibility. That's always what you want to do. Then you're saying Dart or Howard in the third. Well, that's very interesting, and we will also talk about that in a minute. I just teased it a little while ago when I said there was another quarterback I wanted to talk about. Danny Duds Goes says, drafting Saquon wasn't the mistake. He has proven he is a generational talent. Drafting Daniel Jones cannot be justified. Well, Danny Duds Goes, I don't know how you felt about Saquon all along, but all I've heard from the critics is that Saquon was not good enough to be drafted number 2. So I appreciate the fact that, if you changed your mind on that, you finally saw it the right way. There's no question that Saquon Barkley has the talent to be a number 2 overall draft pick. He absolutely has. That it was laughable to me how people did not understand the impact that man can have on a football game. The Goofball says Travis Hunter or Will Johnson. And I'm with you that Hunter and Johnson are two of my top 4 players in this draft, all defensive players. Hunter, Graham, Carter, Johnson. Yep. Okay. Goofball says, Danny drafting Saquon at number 2 was the mistake because we should have traded down. We may have still gotten Saquon. I doubt that very highly, sir. Christine says, Will Johnson, any thoughts? No question. Will Johnson, from Michigan, the corner, he's got size, he's got length, heck of a player. Know he's been banged up a bit. Know the production wasn't always exactly where you wanted it to be, but my goodness, he's got all the traits. He should be dynamite in the pros. Yes, Will Johnson is one of my top 4 players in this draft. So, yes, thoughts? Really good. How about that? All right, we keep going. Sean Jackson, I agree Saquon has always been very talented, but the Daniel Jones draft mistake would have never happened had the Giants drafted Josh Allen or Lamar. You're sitting there at number 2. What are you supposed to do? When the conviction in the room, as I said to you, Sean, when the conviction in the room is that this guy is a Hall of Fame talent, everybody raises their hand, says, yes, okay, that's it. You're taking him. You don't goof around with that. Now, having said that, Sean, and I don't know how long you've been listening to me, I had said in that draft, Josh Allen is by far the best quarterback prospect that year. I was very down on Sam Darnold. I was very down on Josh Rosen. Okay? And I was not high either. I was kind of down on Baker Mayfield. Now, Darnold resuscitated himself this year, but then again, failed at the end. Other than that, the rest of his career has not been very much. Josh Rosen flamed out right from the very beginning. And Josh Allen has done nothing but shoot up to the sky. So I don't know what to tell you, but that's how I felt about those guys at the time. Baker Mayfield, kind of up and down, but certainly up since he got to Tampa Bay. And he is one of those guys who has experienced a renaissance. He has experienced a second life as a quality NFL quarterback. Good for him. Good for him. Okay? He's right now in the process of proving me wrong, right? There's no doubt about that. He's had 2 really good years in a row. Lamar Jackson, I did not give much thought to because he was everybody's 5th quarterback who people weren't even sure if he would sneak into the bottom of the first round or not. I had focused on the top 4. And out of the top 4, for me, Josh Allen was the only one that I would have considered taking because I thought that highly of him. And, of course, he turned out to be great. So it is what it is. All right. Let's see here. Timothy Monet says, Paul, this team needs to get back to being driven by their trenches. I'm hoping we draft Carter and bring back the NASCAR. Yeah, well, you don't need to talk to me about trenches. There's no doubt about that. Trenches? Oh, my goodness. Football 101. You got to win the lines of scrimmage. I don't know how many years I keep talking about this. It started in the 2011 season when they went to that second Super Bowl against the Patriots. And the line was kind of banged up. David Boss was the center. He got banged up, and Kevin Booth had to come in and play center the second half of the season. And beginning in 2012, you could see that line was starting to crack a little. And I started talking about it then. If they could fortify, maybe they need to take a very high offensive line draft pick here. Maybe they need to do that. And boy, did I get grief. I got tremendous grief from the fans. I got a lot of grief from fellow media. What are you taking a lineman for? Why do you need an offensive lineman? I can't tell you how much grief I took. Hey, whatever. I'm still here and I'm still talking about it. Offensive line, man. And obviously defensive line too, because it's all about the line of scrimmage. It's all about the trenches. You'll never get me barking against taking an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman. That will never, ever happen. Okay? Oh, my goodness. There's Tudo again. Tudo coming back. Much respect to our Paisano Poli and diehard Giants fans. Tudo, always much respect to you. Thank you for dropping in and being a starred super user from across the pond. Greetings from our entire Italian rugby national team. And we say, forget about it. There you go, Tudo. And I got to send you out a nice big thank you on the chat over there for sure. Always very kind for Tudo to come in and become a super user for us. We appreciate that all the time. All right, let me get back here to some of these chats. And again, folks, remember, you could always hit us up on the video call or an audio call. All right, let's see. Where did I get lost here? We go back to... All right, Craig. Is Stephon Diggs worth bringing into the Giants, or is he too much wide receiver drama? Wow. You know, Craig, there's no easy answer on this. I expect that Darius Slayton, who's a really good player and a pro's pro and a terrific teammate, one of only a handful of players who over the last 6 years of the NFL has averaged 15 yards a catch in his career. He is a quality wide receiver. I expect he's going to get a free agent offer that's going to be probably too rich for the Giants to match. And it'll be from a team that's much more pass happy in terms of deep throws, throwing it downfield. So I'm going to say the odds are that he winds up getting a better deal elsewhere. Not that the Giants don't want him. Of course they want him. But I think he'll get a better deal elsewhere to go to a very nice warm climate where they throw the ball deep, or for that matter, to a dome team where they throw the ball deep, and he's going to have a lot more opportunities to get downfield and to snare touchdown passes. That's my thought, which means you're going to need at least another wide receiver in the room. Diggs is on the other side of 30. He's had some injuries. He's also had some sandpapery rough spots with Minnesota and with Buffalo in his career. So what you have to do is figure out, all right, is all of that stuff worth it? I just don't know. Do you want to bring him into a locker room with a young, impressionable Malik Neighbors who is going to be your number one receiver? If you bring him in here, is he going to make noise if he's not the one getting 110 targets in the fall of 2025? Because you know that Neighbors is still going to get the most targets. The Giants people from Buffalo, I'm sure they've got tremendous intel. And they will know, between Dable and Shane, they will know everything you need to know about Stephon Diggs. They will. So here's what I'm going to tell you, Craig. With the kind of intel that they have with their pipeline to Buffalo, if the Giants decide that they're going to make a play for Diggs, it's because they believe in every way, shape, and form that they can handle him and they can make it work. If they don't make a play for him, then it tells you that they don't believe they can handle it and they don't think it can work. You got to trust Shane and Dable in this case because their file and their frame of reference and their pipeline is going to be a whole lot better than you or I could possibly imagine. So I'm going to say this. It's an intriguing name, but I haven't the foggiest clue as to whether or not they would bring him in or if they should bring him in. That's going to be up to the people who have the most intel to figure out whether or not they would want to do such a thing. You know he's going to want some money. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. Even though he's on the other side, age-wise and injury-wise, he's still going to want some pretty green stuff slapped into his bank account. The big move. Hi, Paul. Got a late YouTube notification. Do you think Evan Neal can be like Becton switching from tackle to guard? Wasted 3 years with the Jets and is doing well in Philly. Another Flowers situation. The big move. I have been with Joe Shane on the side of the fact that Neal is a starting right tackle for this team. I think he proved over the latter half of this past season that he is good enough to be one of the starting five going into training camp. But I will tell you, as the Giants try to fortify their offensive line, and this is the first time that I'm really going to say this on any of the programs that I do. If they decide, and again, I've got no problem myself if Neal plays right tackle this year. But if the Giants decide this year that this is the year that they need to try to move him inside because that makes the starting five better, well, then you know what? You got to go for it. Because this is got to be, based on what John Mara said about his patience running out, this has got to be a year of a turnaround. It has to. The Giants have to get that arrow pointing up. And if it means that you've got to take some sharp action with some of your current guys, and if it means that they go out and they find a stud tackle in the draft, which then says, okay, maybe Evan Neal should try at guard. Well, then you do it. But what if in the draft they find a stud guard who they really, really like at guard? Well, then, okay. You enhance your offensive line depth at guard, and you keep Evan Neal at tackle. I guess what I'm saying is, for the first time in his career, I'm willing to tell you that Evan Neal needs to go where the Giants roster needs him the most. If it's at right tackle, I've got no problem keeping him there. If their roster needs him more at guard, then I'd be all for it if he had to move. At this point, right now, as of today, I still see him as a right tackle. But you got to get the best five on the field. One way or the other. That's what this is all about. So if they enhance their depth at tackle, then maybe Evan Neal does have to become a guard. You know, it's been like 2 years. People have been begging me to move off of the tackle talk. I'm now at least putting a bit of an asterisk on it, okay? See, I can move. It just takes the right conditions to make me move. James O'Keefe says, Timothy, I agree. I'd have to go back, and he was talking about getting trenches. Yeah, totally. No question about that. Christine says, me too. Sean Jackson. And by the way, we're an hour and a half in, and we're over 500. So you guys, we got 500 plus live viewers on the program, and you guys have kept me an hour and a half, so we will go to the top of the hour for sure. I don't know how much longer we'll go. Tudo, you did it again. Tudo, timeout. Guys, you see what Tudo's doing? He is a real super user. Holy smokes. Let's see. Paulie, easy solutions to all Giants problems. Please gear me in Giants gear, and I promise you, won't be any of opposing teams on lines or quarterbacks working off the fields as the powers me. Oh, man. First of all, Tudo, believe it or not, yes, we do get certain gears as a member of the broadcast team that we do have to wear, that we are required to wear during certain programs on all of our Giants programming. That is true. The bad news is we do not get any extra. And so, unfortunately, I can't help you in that regard. And I feel really bad because you have been incredibly generous to us. And I'm going to thank you again a billion times over. But that is the way it works. There is not an additional allotment of gear assigned to us. The stuff that we get, we are supposed to wear on the different programs. And so really there's nothing else to say about that, Tudo. If I had something I could do, I would absolutely do. You've been so loyal to the program, and I would love to be able to help, but I just don't have that ability. Just a lowly announcer. Sean Jackson says, what's the atmosphere currently like around the Giants facility with an upcoming NFC East championship game between the Eagles and the Washington Commanders, who were last place in the division a year ago? Well, Sean, to be honest, the coaches had a little bit of time off after the season was over. They've come back. They have done grading of their individual positions. And now, as we mentioned to you a little while ago at the beginning of the program, 5 of the Giants members of this coaching staff are going to either the Senior Bowl or the Shrine Bowl to work and coach in the games. And this is a great advantage for the Giants. We told you that Muasau and Tyrone Tracy were drafted all for the Shrine Bowl rosters last year. I would expect that the Giants are going to draft players again that they will have contact with at either the Shrine Bowl or the Senior Bowl this season. So that's, that's the attitude right now. The mentality is get to work. The personnel department, the pro personnel department, is working 25 hours a day figuring out free agency, because that's critical to what the Giants are going to do before they get to the draft in April. And by the way, that's the other thing I got to do here. I did not do it before, and I apologize. And let me go back to this, because while we're talking about the coaches, and it's my fault for not addressing this earlier, for those of you who were a little bit late to the party, excuse me, Mike Adams, Giants assistant secondary coach, was added to the Senior Bowl on the American team as the defensive backs coach. That just came out today. So he is the 5th Giants assistant that's going to be going to one of the All-Star games. And Marquand Manuel, who was the safeties coach for the Jets the past 3 seasons, when in each of those 3 seasons, they were amongst the top 5 best passing defenses in the league for allowing the fewest yards during the year. Manuel is coming to the Giants, according to reports. Jeremy Fowler of ESPN was the first one to have it. Manuel coming to the Giants as their defensive backs coach in the secondary. He was formerly a defensive coordinator with the Atlanta Falcons, had an awful lot of experience prior to that, before the Jets and before the Falcons, with the Legion of Boom, where he worked on the defensive side of the ball with the very, very well-known Seattle Seahawks and their legendary defensive backs. So he's got quite a number of years of experience and winning experience with teams that did well. Remember, Dan Quinn was in Seattle, then he went to head coach at Atlanta, and he took Manuel with him to Atlanta. And then that didn't work out for Quinn, so Manuel wound up landing with the Jets. And obviously the Jets secondary, had some really good players, including Sauce, and, they performed pretty well. So wanted to get that out while we were talking about coaches there for just a moment. All right. Let's see. Oh, Tudo again. Look at this guy. This is 3 times. It's a hat trick, to take a hockey term. Tudo, thank you so much as another starred user and super user. Paul, you didn't get my point, mate. I meant sign me up on Giants defensive rosters. 8 figures. 8 figures in terms of the salary. Not asking for freebie gears. Oh, Tudo, you're the greatest, man. Oh, my goodness. Hey, look, you got somebody on that rugby team who can play? Send them on over, right? The NFL is all about the international sports now, right? Come on. You got somebody over there who wants to play? Get them on over here. Tudo, thank you once again for your generosity. I do appreciate it very, very much. And all the best, of course, to your team over there. Let's go back to the chats, and let's see who else we got as we try to take this to the top of the hour. I certainly like to get to 10 o'clock Eastern time. Christine says, can't have it all to best available players. Yeah, well, that's part of the problem, right? Everybody wants to fill all the holes at once. And that very, very rarely happens. Sometimes you just have to get very, 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 very lucky. And when you do, hey, everything seems to click, right? Let's see. Let's see here. Some conversation between some of our fellow listeners and viewers. Okay. Yeah, Sean, you got it. Says perhaps it's just the fact that the Giants line was not up to par for Barkley. Well, you're right. Look, the Giants line, especially in pass protection in 2023, was historically bad. They weren't that good in run blocking either. Let's not kid ourselves. In 2022, they were much closer to functional. Giants went to the playoffs. Daniel Jones had a nice year. Saquon Barkley had a nice year. No coincidence, fellas and ladies. When the lines play well, your team usually does well. Right? The hand bone's connected to the wrist bone. The wrist bone's connected to the elbow. The elbow's connected to the shoulder. The shoulder's connected to the body. That's the way it works. It's not hard. James O'Keefe says, Paul, have you started your linebacker fill work yet on this year's class? No, I have not. I know defensive tackle is a fairly deep class. Cornerbacks not too deep. That is true. There are some corners. It's not a terrible corner. The top of the corner class isn't bad. But defensive tackle is really good. I mentioned somebody, James, earlier, Nazir Stackhouse from Georgia. We're looking at potentially a 3rd-round pick for him. That guy's got to make it great. I have done some work on him. I knew we were going to be talking about the Shrine Bowl tonight. And since he's going to the Shrine, I did some work up on him. And yes, he'd be a nice third-round pick for somebody looking for a defensive tackle, potentially the Giants. You got to wonder if that's probably or if that's part of the Giant rationale too. If they don't take the quarterback at 3, what are they looking to take there? I say you take the best guy available. And if it's Hunter, I think he's there. You have to take him. At least I have to take him. Again, I'm not going to tell you what the Giants are going to do. I'm not a predictor. I would take Hunter. And then I'd worry about taking, in the second and third and the fourth rounds, I'd worry about taking a quarterback. I'd worry about taking a defensive tackle. I would take the best available amongst the defensive tackles, the corners, the offensive line, and I would definitely want to get a quarterback in there in the second or third round. All right, Timothy Menace comes back. Paul, how do we fix our leaky secondary? It seems like this past season, there were too many instances of guys not making plays at the catch point of communication errors. Timothy, that's part of the problem that I had, okay? They did not play the ball very well. That's true. No question about that, But the bigger thing that troubled me is that there were so many breakdowns where guys were wide open. And we know that some of it was flat out communication issues. That should never happen in December. That was very troublesome for me. And Timothy, I'm sure that Brian Dable is trying to get to the bottom of that as he does his self-scout at the end of this season. What was going on either with the players, the coordinator, the assistant coaches? What was going on? Why were there so many breakdowns in the secondary this year? In fact, it wasn't just the secondary. Sometimes it was just the whole back seven, where a linebacker didn't have the zone he was supposed to have because there was a miscommunication there. And, he thought the safety was going to come up and play this guy, but he let him go because he was going to play man on somebody else and the safety was going to play zone. Too many problems. I don't know remember, on defense, it's all about, it's all about this. It's about assignment, alignment, technique, and execution. Those are the 4 basic things you have to have for every defensive player. So where did it go wrong for the Giants? Now, that's a self-scout that the coaches are doing here at the end of the season. It's impossible if you're not in the coach's room to know where did that fall. Was it assignment, alignment, technique, or execution? Now, execution we can see. We can look, he missed that tackle. He face masked that guy and caused a penalty. We could see some of the execution stuff. Technique, we could kind of see that too. All right. The educated eye who's been watching football a long time, you could see technique and say that guy did not have good technique on the play. What we don't really know is what was called, what was the assignment, and then the alignment, which has to do with the communication as the players on the field get the call, and now they put themselves in the spot where they're supposed to be able to make the play. Those are the 2 things that are very, very, very hard to understand or to identify if you're not in the huddle or in the coach's film room after the game. So as I've said on this program and many other programs, the smartest people who cover this sport know what they don't know. People can guess, people can talk all they want out of their butts about what they think happened and pontificate that, oh, this, and this guy was to blame. Okay. Except that when you peel back the layers of the onion, you find out that no, actually, you were entirely wrong. And I had that happen many times this year where I heard other media people blaming a certain player for a play. And then because I have very good, respectful professional relationships with players and coaches, I would later talk to them and say, hey, on that play, this is what I saw, but I thought about this. And then I find out the truth. And it turns out it was nothing like what some of the other media thought, because they didn't take the time to go back to a coach or to go back to a player and find out or get an honest answer about how the play wound up developing. I get that. I get that. And I don't say that for any other reason other than to make you aware that a lot of what you may see or hear or read is guesswork. And it's not really what happened. Sometimes you got to get to the fourth layer of the onion to truly understand why a play did not work. The surface of the onion does not tell you the correct story. James O'Keefe, film, not Phil. Sorry for the typo. It's okay, James. I understood what you meant. Oh. American Cheese. Hey, Paul, what are your thoughts on Jalen Walker, Jihad Campbell, Trey Amos, and Siobhan Revel? All right. I told you that Revel's supposed to be at the Shrine Bowl. He does have the torn ACL. He would have been a very high first-round draft pick this year out of South Carolina. He's a corner, for those of you who don't know. Out of East Carolina. I apologize. I slipped of the tongue there. Only played 3 games this past year. That's a medical issue. Any team that wants to draft him is going to go to their medical staff first and get a medical grade on him before they decide whether or not that he is going to be drafted and where they're going to draft him. As far as the other players, I have not dug in very deeply yet. I've had college basketball stuff going on, and also I've been really dealing a lot with the NFL playoffs. But I promise you, American Cheese, I usually, right around the end of this month with the All-Star games, I kind of kick off my very intense college draft study. I kind of kick it off with the All-Star games. That's where it really goes. There are plenty of draft gurus who do this 12 months out of the year. I spend most of my time worrying about what the Giants are doing, not only in the games and what their opponents are doing, but also trying to configure the Giants roster during the offseason. That's what I spend most of my time doing. The college draft stuff, it is incredibly intensive, and I compact it into a very short period of time. Obviously, it also overlaps with free agency. So it's a crazy horse race for the next few months. I will be getting much more into that stuff. So at the moment, what I would suggest is, yes, I can't help you a whole lot with that now. Very peripheral information at this point, but I will get to that stuff. Christine says, Timothy, my thoughts are I'm hoping Bowen starts scheming to our players' strengths. And I truly believe that will help tremendously. Okay. Oh, Tudo. Oh, he's the man. I think we hit that. I thought we hit that one up earlier, didn't we? Oh, he's doing it again. Look at this. Tudo, Tudo, you're going crazy here. All right. Tudo hits us up as another super user once again, and a super chat gentleman. Tudo, again, I can't thank you enough. It's awfully kind of you. I wish there was some way, right? There was some way that I could truly express to you how much I appreciate your loyalty and your generosity to this program. Thank you just doesn't seem to be enough. Again, for the fourth time. But it's about the only thing I know what to do. At least that's how my parents taught me. You say thank you. And when you appreciate things. So, let's see. Paulie, top 10 defensive player of the year, 3 consecutive years, rugby union. First team All-Pro Super Rugby, 3 years. If Giants can afford a purse, have your people talk to our people. Dudo, you're the best. Dudo, you're absolutely the best. Here's what's so awesome, right? What's so awesome is here we are across the pond, and we got a guy who not only him and his rugby team over there in Italy, not only love the New York Giants and American football, even though we are separated by a very large body of water, right? And a game that has some similarities, but obviously a whole bunch of different rules. But not only does Tudo and his guys love what the Giants and the NFL are all about, but also with such great respect for the game and understanding that, hey, you know what? If there's anything that we could do to help, we would be there to help. That is so awesome. Tudo, you're the man. You really are the man. I'm so glad that we have you as part of our audience from across the pond. I really am. Let's see. What do we have here? Oh, let me keep going down. I got to get back to these chats. We're falling a little bit behind, and we only got about 10 minutes left. Okay. Sean Jackson says, Paul, so you were fine with Josh Allen initially sitting behind the line learning. Saquon was the most talented player in that draft, but years later, I feel like the Giants have nothing to show for it. No. Sean, what I said was, if I were a team looking for a quarterback, Josh Allen would absolutely be my first quarterback on the board. I did not. I was all about drafting Saquon Barkley. If I was in the number 2 spot, I was drafting Saquon Barkley. I initially going into the combine in Indianapolis, I was professing Quentin Nelson would have been my pick at number 2. That was the way I felt going in. At the combine, I got so much more intel, and I said, you know what? No, it's got to be Saquon Barkley because he has gold jacket written all over him. And I just decided that, you know what, the Giants might have enough to get by at offensive line. And even though I was a huge Quentin Nelson fan, I swapped out at the combine and I said, hey, my guy is Saquon Barkley, and that's the way I'm going to stick with it. And I've stuck with it ever since. So, no, I would not have drafted Josh Allen because, in my opinion at the time, the Giants did not need to draft a quarterback. Okay? In fact, Sean, to be further clear, I was of the belief that Eli Manning had at least another year starting quarterback in him. Yeah, I was. And I still think Eli Manning had another year of starting quarterback in him. I thought the plug was pulled too early, and they went to Daniel Jones too early. I would have preferred that Daniel Jones sit for another year and Eli Manning play one more season. We could debate that all you like. It's an opinion. That's it. It's an opinion. You may feel differently, and that's okay. That's how I feel. I was a very strong believer in Eli Manning and thought he had another year left. So, no, I would not have drafted Josh Allen because I would not have drafted a quarterback in that draft. Okay? But if I were to draft a quarterback that year, Josh Allen, hands down, was my guy. Okay. Okay. James O'Keefe says, sorry to disagree, Paul, but my eyes tell me no way is Evan Neal good starting right tackle. How many times can he screw up and not be accountable? That's okay. No, again, James, it's all right. Here's what we do know. And then you said here, agree, the best 5 linemen. Absolutely. It's okay. Not everybody's going to see it the same way. All right. Here's what I do know. Evan Neal started on the path of resuscitating his career at the end of this season. The last third of the year, when he played starting right tackle, he was certainly terrific in the run game. Really, really good in the run game. And you know what? He was probably, in terms of the stretch of games that he played, it was probably one of the better stretches, if not the best 5 or 6 week stretch that he had protecting in the pass game as well. Now, was it great? No, it wasn't great, but it was absolutely functional. No question about it. And if all the naysayers who just want to beat this guy up over what he did prior to this past season, if they don't want to see it, they don't have to. That's their prerogative. They could keep their eyes closed and not recognize that Evan Neal showed improvement and had a solid stretch. Bottom line is, James, the Giants need to put the best 5 offensive linemen out on the field. You already agree to that. I agree to that. Whoever the 5 are, I don't give a flying horse's behind or donkey's behind who the 5 are. They got to get the best 5 on the field because the offensive line needs to play well. And it needs to be even better than it was this year because it came from historically bad to pretty functional most of the time. But they got to get it to another notch. Just give me 5 guys who will do that. I don't care if their names are Jiminy Cricket, Pinocchio, Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, and Bugs Bunny. I don't care. All right. Let's see. What else? Isaac Moore says, P. Dot, hey, what free agents are you looking to target specifically? Well, it just starts right now with the quarterback situation. I've made it very clear for quite a while. You've got to get a veteran bridge quarterback in here who has won a bunch of games and in big spots. Jimmy Garoppolo checks the most boxes for me. That's the guy that I would like. The Giants, if they've got somebody else in mind, they got to follow their conviction. They got to pick the guy that they would like. But yes, Jimmy Garoppolo would be somebody I would seriously look at. I would consider talking to Russell Wilson if he's available. I would probably talk to Andy Dalton, who's going to be a free agent. I would probably talk to Heineke, who's going to be available. There's a bunch of guys, but Kirk Cousins, yeah, I'd talk to Kirk Cousins. I'd kick the tires. I'd see if he's available. And if he's available, he's going to get cut, and the medical people said he's okay, yeah. There's a handful of guys that I absolutely would kick the tires on. Yes, yes. Those are, but that right now, that's where all my focus is on free agency. They got to get the bridge quarterback. That's the most important thing in free agency right now, more than anything else. Okay, let's see. Oh my goodness, Tudo did it again. Tudo says, Paul, I was born in Italy, grew up in Princeton, Jersey. That's right, New Jersey. Grad from Rutgers. He's a Scarlet Knight. Married my wife from Rutgers, Jersey 2 times over. And now breaking in to make a living mate. Well, there you go. Wow. Way to go, Tudo. Way to go. Salute and salute. There you go. Tudo, so happy again to have you as part of our regular programming. All right, guys. Well, that'll do it. We're 2 hours in. I appreciate all of you for sticking with us once again. We're up to almost 600 people, 594 on the live program right now. Oh, 595. I would love to have gotten it to 600 before we signed off, but it does not appear that we have anybody else. Oh my, Tudo says to Christine, oh, it is only 4 a.m. in Italy. Holy smokes. 4 a.m. Tudo, have you any idea how many times I've been up at 2:30, 3 o'clock, 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, diagramming plays, digging into film, researching certain things about certain players? Oh my goodness. I could so much appreciate somebody like you who's willing to stay up all kinds of overnight hours because of their passion for what it is that they're interested in. Because that, my friend, is certainly me. And Tudo says, ciao. Absolutely. James says, thanks. You put in the hours. Yeah, well, James, when you have a passion for what you do, it's really not that hard. And there we go. We just hit number 600. I wonder how many people just joined us now in the last couple of minutes as we got to 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, which is 7 o'clock p.m. out on the West Coast. And for those of you on the West Coast who may have just joined in, please, prayers for everybody out there in Los Angeles. I know it's been a little over a week now, week and a half, that those fires have ravaged so many neighborhoods and caused so much destruction. Folks, I'm very fortunate. I don't know anyone who has been touched by that horrible tragedy. I've got friends up north of San Francisco who are quite a ways away from it. But even those folks have told me how much personally it has impacted their whole attitude and outlook on things that have happened in their state. So as always, and I did not mean to forget this at the start of the program, prayers and thoughts to everyone in Los Angeles or anyone who knows people who have been impacted by those horrible fires. And you know, we don't even see it now much on the news because of all the politics that have been going on. I'll be honest with you. I don't even know how much of that stuff is even happening right now. Are the fires, finally getting under control? Are they still marching on neighborhoods and destroying more towns? I don't even know that because the news back here on the East Coast has kind of pushed it aside because of all the stuff involved in U.S. politics. But I'm sure that there's still a lot of devastation going on, and there's a lot of responders and a lot of firemen and policemen and safety people and public health people who are still doing as much as they possibly can. So again, thoughts and prayers to all those people. Tudo says, Paul, we get up at 3:30 a.m. and start our day working out. Paisano. Oh, man. There you go. Tudo, get some rest, okay? It's obvious that you're very devoted to your team out there, and they need as much energy as you can provide for them. So please be well, and we hope to see you again next Wednesday at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time for the next edition of the Big Blue Breakdown Live. Again, we will go over what we've learned from the Shrine Bowl practices that can be found at that website. Again, let me pull that up for you. It's lightsoutsportstv.com. Daily coverage of the Shrine Bowl practices begins on Saturday, January 25th, and runs through Tuesday the 28th. It is live and free video streaming of Shrine Bowl practices, lightsoutsportstv.com, 9 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 3.5 hours of great stuff where you can learn a lot about the potential draft choices that will be in this April's NFL draft, even before we get to the Senior Bowl later on next week. So that's where we're at. We'll be back here again Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll talk about what we saw at the Shrine Bowl practices on the screen. We will preview some of the guys you might want to look at for the Giants in the Senior Bowl that comes up after the Shrine Bowl. And again, we'll just continue to rock and roll and bring you as many of these themed program, Big Blue Breakdown Live programs as we can over the course of the next few weeks. We hope you enjoy it. Let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chats. And we'll be here if you guys want us to be here. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm Paul Dottino, and we will – oh, wait a minute. Did he do it again? Oh, there you go. Tudo. The man never stops. I'm Paul Dottino, and we will see you next time on the Big Blue Breakdown Live here as part of the New York Giants on SI YouTube page and Media Network. Good night, everybody.